My name is Krisztian Magori. I'm an assistant professor in biology, and I have been one of the instructors in one of the FYE sequences this year. Our sequence was centered around the idea of spread, that everything spreads across the disciplines. We have different mechanisms for spread, but the phenomenon of spread is shared across many, many disciplines. And we sat down with Chris Kirby and Julia Smith, the other two instructors, and we decided to use the book Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond as our center book. And Chris Kirby was teaching in the fall, talking about, from a philosophical perspective, how you can distinguish truths and not truths. How do you decide if you believe an argument, what arguments are valid and what are not, what are the usual flaws that you see and sort of fake arguments. And then I focused in the winter on the natural sciences, and in the spring Julia Smith is focusing on the spread of technologies and ideas and cultures and religions and on that side of spread. And so in my course in the winter, I focused on spread in the natural sciences, and I tried to give a taste of all the different disciplines within the natural sciences and how spread is a phenomenon across all of them. And so I started off with some physics experiments, like heat transfer and things spreading out, like water melting and ice melting and water spreading out. And then I moved on to a little bit of chemistry with diffusion and like a dye spreading in a gel. And we learned about the diffusion equation, and then we moved on with a little bit more chemistry, going into biology with chromatography and dispersal in a biological system, like a bacterial colony growing on a plate. And then we moved on to like dispersal of really in biological organisms, like seeds moving in different ways and animals moving. And this all tied into the book, as the book is about how different organisms are spreading and how humans were spreading in history from one continent to another, and how they were bringing with themselves livestock and agriculture, and with that pathogens. And so the last part of the course was all about the spread of infectious diseases, and I was able to bring in some folks from the Spokane Regional Health Department and to talk about the importance of vaccination and how diseases spread and how do they investigate disease spread, and also the University Health Center and what sort of services they do have and how they work to protect the student population and everybody else. And all throughout the course, I wanted to make sure that the students get a taste into a really rigorous course where they had to fill out lab reports, had to complete lab reports and submit those. They had to keep a notebook. They had to be really meticulous in how they were working. They had to work in groups. And so I was also trying to provide them with student success skills, like critical reading skills. We did an exercise where they had to read a book chapter and come up with questions on that book chapter, and then trying to pose those questions to each other, and then try to answer each other's questions, and with that trying to access the text as much as possible. And I think what every faculty should know is that these courses are really exciting and really fun to teach. They are, of course, a lot of work. So for me, this was a completely new prep. I've never taught a course like that. I think some faculty are maybe able to adapt previous courses to that, but I didn't have anything like that. But it is a lot of fun coming up with the activities, and the assignments and all of the things that they were doing. For advice that I would give is get to know the students as much as possible, as soon as possible. Try to develop a personal connection. I mean, this is a cohort of 25 students who already know each other from the fall quarter when I got them in the winter quarter, and it was really important that how I was introduced to them and what connection I developed with them. So I intentionally invited Chris Kirby to the first class to introduce the students to me, and I tried to introduce myself as much as on a personal level as possible. And Julia Smith was also coming to as many activities and labs as she could, so that she develops a connection with them by the time she gets them in the spring quarter. And I think that worked out really well. So I think that's a good practice for FYE courses. The other advice I would give that I would do the next time is focus more on group dynamics and group work. Try to figure out how they can work together better, because what I observed was that they don't really know how to work together in groups. They were not, if they had to work in a group project, they didn't really know how to share different pieces of the group project and how to decide who does what piece and how it gets put back together, which I was assuming that they would know how to do that, but they really didn't. So I think some focus on that helps. And maybe another advice is to just use as many of the resources available on campus as possible, like bringing in these outside sources. Like I had several invited guest speakers. Like I invited the biologist from Turnbull National Wildlife Refuge to talk about the spread of invasive species, so they see other things. And I also was bringing in a lot of other faculty from biology, like Luis Matos was running gel electrophoresis from them on basically his lab funds, so that they can see that in practice. The best part in teaching the FYE was really just developing the course. So developing the curriculum was really exciting, just to make it happen. It was really exciting to see their level of enthusiasm. They were really interested in, especially the infectious diseases part. I think that the physics chemistry part was maybe not their favorite, but towards the end they got more and more interested.
Well, maybe because that's your area, and maybe, so your own enthusiasm.
Yes, that's possible. And I'm more familiar with that. So, and the best part was that I think we had one student who has already declared to be a biotech major just during the winter quarter, which I don't think happens a whole lot, that a freshman would declare in the winter quarter of first year. So just because he got the exposure, he was already interested in invasive species, and he was interested in biotech, and he could sort of see how the two fit together. And I think that was really rewarding to see. What surprised me the most was that how meticulous the students were. They were really good about keeping notes. They were pretty good about attendance. I did keep, that's another advice I would give, definitely keep an attendance log, because otherwise they might not attend as much as you want. But with keeping an attendance log, attendance was pretty high. So I would always have almost the entire class, maybe a couple of them missing. And I was also surprised how good notes they were taking, and how much sort of enthusiasm they had. In terms of surprises, maybe what surprised me was that they needed help in the group dynamics. I wasn't prepared for that as much. So I will do that differently next time.